Welcome to the show. This is The Force Always. My name is Diz, aka David Zammit. Let's get on with the show with the news, the views, the reviews, and interviews in my Jedi robe. Sort of woke up a little bit late this morning. Wherever you are in the world, I'm in a very late part of the morning. Anyway, let's get on with the show. Well, we've had 4 episodes from Maul, Shadow Lord, and the likes for this show is definitely consistently high. Remarkably, especially for the last 2 episodes as well, because they were a little bit less action, more sort of psychological, but they're still carrying on with the attention of likes amongst fans and non-fans, whoever's watching it out there. And so Shadow Lord, that's Maul. Well, we think it's the Shadow Lord, is continuing with some great reactions. To more news in America, specifically Las Vegas. As I've mentioned a couple of days ago, we have an event there called CinemaCon. It's not really for Star Wars, it's there for cinema owners to preview up-and-coming projects, whether it's in the next year or two, or coming up in the coming months. And so, Sony will be there. Lionsgate, I don't think is going to be this year. There's going to be Warner Brothers, Disney, and, that's the big one for Star Wars fans, especially Lucasfilm is under the Disney banner. That's going to be held on Thursday, I think late night Thursday in America, Las Vegas. So by Friday, I don't know, evening here in Australia, Melbourne, Australia, that is, being on the East Coast, we should have some exciting news that I'm really looking forward to, especially with Star Wars Starfighter, the movie coming out in 2027. Really, really excited for that one. I'm expecting they're going to give you a full viewing of The Mandalorian and Grogu in CinemaCon. That could be a possibility. It's just my thoughts. It's not happening. I'm just saying it's my thoughts. Mandalorian and Grogu could get a full showing at CinemaCon. That could be there. And anything else that's connected to Star Wars, I'm sure they will be announcing. The presidents of Lucasfilm will be there. And I'm not going to mention their names just to be equal to being fair, not remembering their both names, just to be fair. But CinemaCon is a big, big deal. It's going to come up with some big, big news, especially towards the end of this week. Also for Marvel fans being under the Disney banner, I think you guys, or even myself to an extent, will be getting a Avengers Doomsday official complete trailer at least. And that should be put online, I think, very ASAP from the event, as the anticipation, the talk, would be just massive. It's just going to be a massive film that comes out at the end of this year. Anyway, that's not really Star Wars related, but, similar, good versus bad type of feel and under the Disney logo. But that is the news for this time around. Let's get into the views. Views technically is my story idea, also my viewpoint on things in Star Wars, and but I accept the story for what it is. Whatever happens in the Star Wars timeline, I accept it for what it is. Let me take a Mandalorian peel. And why not a bit of a beverage? So anyway, it's my story idea that I accept the story for what is out there, that is actual canon. I love, sort of the ideas and legends and EU, but I don't really concentrate on those so much. I'm more of a canon person. I like to see the official Star Wars. Everything else is great ideas, either being published or not published, and this is a non-published idea. So my viewpoint, it's more of a viewpoint than a story idea, but my viewpoint with the dislikers and or haters for especially the movie Episode 9, Rise of Skywalker. If you go back into my whole channel, you may find a Rise of Skywalker review. Should be still up, many years ago now. And I ranked it pretty high. I thought it was pretty good. I enjoyed The Rise of Skywalker. Australian audiences are much different to American audiences. I can tell you this officially. When I saw Force Awakens, I saw the opening session here in Melbourne. Everyone's quiet and, doesn't really say much. Cinema's packed. Midnight session it was. And there was not really much of an enthusiasm from the crowd. But when you go to America, especially the Chinese theatre in which I did on the opening night as well, I went there for both openings. Can you believe it? When The Force Awakens come out, I saw it there multiple times in America. I can almost tell you every single time I went in America, the woos, the laughs, the wows, and all that are just almost perfectly on time in any cinema attendance there, and it's really enthusiastic, completely different to an Australian audience. Not to say Australia is bad, but it's a bit more subtle, a bit discreet. But they will cheer every so often. But going back to The Rise of Skywalker, the dislikers and haters, I personally, to this day, am absolutely bewildered in how many people dislike that film. The film, to me, is not that bad. I think the most peculiar point in the whole film, as I've said before, is when Rey holds up this knife or whatever it is and sort of stands in a position looking at the old Death Star in this ocean sort of feel and lines it up and then finds out where this particular thing she's looking at. She's finding a thing so she can find the actual Emperor hiding out. That idea of where she would actually stand and the exact positioning of this knife, especially when the Death Star is sitting in the ocean, it still could corrode, it could change the look of the shape. I just thought that was a bit bizarre. Besides that, and maybe not having people like Finn have a great story arc. Only at the very end we got to discover that he possibly is a Jedi. It was never actually said, but it's implied, and I'm sure we know he's a Jedi. Yeah, sort of wanting to get out there. But I just think it's really remarkable how many people dislike and hate that film. I don't think it deserves the hate and dislike it gets, but everyone has their own opinion. And I just think, we're a good 10 years away before this particular trilogy, which was Episode 7 and Episode 8 and Episode 9, gets some sort of appreciation. But I don't think it will ever get the level of appreciation with the younger generation who grew up with the prequels. Because the big difference is that social media is much more alert in these times, even 5 or 6 years ago when The Rise of Skywalker came out last. It's more, relevant in our society now than when the prequels or when the young kids who watch the prequels watch this at older age and started really appreciating it. And people like Hayden Christensen, who got their due respect many decades after, finally got it. I'm wishing that it will turn. I'm wishing that Daisy Ridley, especially being the face of the sequels, will get the recognition she should. She's a great actress. I think she portrayed the role really good. I think the story arc of her, to me, to this day, makes sense. It might be a little bit out there how quickly she evolved to be a great Jedi, but anything is possible. Anything is possible. Let's take this back to the original trilogy. If Darth Vader, who killed thousands of people and affected friends and family of those people being killed, simply can be turned to the good in a last redeeming moment, and be sent to Star Wars heaven. If that can be possible, and that's the 80s, then her character, that's Rey Skywalker, can be redeemed to be understood as well. Yet her biggest disgrace to a lot of people who not like the story was that how quickly she evolved to becoming a strong Jedi. But in my understanding, my opinion, having the grandpa being Emperor Palpatine, which was a last minute decision. Yes, that's a bit of a a quick say, but having that amount of power in that person being pushed into somebody like the grandchild, through genes and stuff like that, makes sense. The reason why she never used it in the beginning is because she was unaware of and so lost as a child, living in the desert. She didn't know what was right, wrong, or what was good or bad. She just was there to survive. She may have sort of understood things a bit differently in a strange way at times before she got really praised and sort of taken under the wing by Luke Skywalker. But I think the movie Rise of Skywalker gets a lot of heat for not being such a bad movie. That's my opinion. Some of you out there will absolutely dislike or hate what I'm saying, but each to their own. If you don't like the particular story or the movie, then that's your opinion. It's okay. But that's my view. That's my view. I'm so remarked by how much it gets a dislike for. I can sort of get the whole Last Jedi thing because it was such an original type of storytelling for Star Wars. And in my partial opinion, I think the biggest mistake in that film was calling it The Last Jedi, because it has a Star Wars word, which was Jedi, that was used again in a title. I think that's a bit taboo in Star Wars, in my opinion. I won't extend on what my, more thoughts about that, but that's, anyway, that's my thoughts. Anyway, that's my views for this time around. Let's get into reviews. Reviews this time around is going to be something that is sort of relevant and sort of becoming relevant very shortly. Now, when you go to a Star Wars celebration, which is coming up next year, if you are going to the autograph section and you've forgotten to bring something you want autographed, well, they have actually usually free carded posters, like a nice carded glossy poster, a little size one, this size, and this one here. I didn't get signed because I actually got something else signed from this actual actor, Ray Park, who plays the original Darth Maul. I got one of my figures signed by this guy. But this is the type of thing you can get from a Star Wars celebration. And they even have these things you can buy, plastic sort of things to put your prized autographs in, or just a picture. I kept the picture because I thought it was great. And this was from Star Wars Celebration in Chicago. As you can see, the logo in your top right. So that is a Darth Maul carded small size poster that you would get autographed at Star Wars Celebration if you do forget to bring something to sign for your favorite artist wanting to sign something for you. Anyway, so that's another midichlorian pill. That's my review. I give that particular thing, I say 9 out of 10. 9 out of 10. It's just, it's just a straightforward pose. It's a Star Wars Celebration official Tops by Tops carded poster, little poster. But 9 out of 10. I don't want to give it 10. I just gave it 9. Anyway, so let's now get into interviews. Interviews is usually my questions on my last particular video I released, usually. And while I'm at it, subscribe to The Force Always. I'm here 3 or 4 times a week with the news, the views, the reviews, and interviews. Let's get into the questions. And one of our favourite question people is Michael from Werribee South. It's a part of Melbourne, Australia, just in case you don't know. Werribee South. So, Michael from Werribee South is asking, will Devon Izara become the next Darth Talon? A major fan theory gaining traction is whether Devon's unwritten fate leads her to become a version of the iconic Darth Talon. Viewers are questioning if her loyalty to Master Daki will hold or Maul's breakdown of her beliefs will ultimately succeed. Very interesting question. There is a big understanding and favoritism for her becoming Darth Talon. Darth Talon was I don't know who actually created the name, but it did come from the George Lucas period of time. He was going to use her in his treatment of episodes 7, 8, 9. Darth Talon actually looks like Darth Maul, but a female version, a bit more sort of revealing of her body. Let's just put it simply that way. But she still looks menacing. Will Devon Ezra become the Darth Talon? I think possibly, but I've got a small feeling it's a bit of a misdirect, possibly in this particular show. Maybe she will. I think it's a bit obvious that she could become this, especially with Star Wars fans, and I think the creators of this, especially Dave Filoni, I think would know that this would be a bit obvious. So I'm thinking that it's 50-50, but I'm going to say that she will become Darth Talon. Even though I strongly think the possibility of her becoming who she is, staying a Jedi, could still be there. I have to sit on the fence in this one, but I'll say that all indications are saying that she will become Darth Talon, a version of what the original creator of Darth Talon wanted Darth Talon to be. So I think she could be that. I don't know, but it would be sad to see this Devon leave her Jedi ways, but possibly it will happen. I'm going to say indications are showing that she will become Darth Talon. Next question from Michael, Werribee South. How can Maul possibly defeat the Empire on Janix? With a Star Destroyer arriving at the end of episode 4, fans are debating if Maul is hopelessly outgunned. The central question is whether he will be forced into a reluctant alliance with local authorities like Captain Lawson to survive the Imperial occupation. Great ending to that last episode of episode 4 in the Maul Shadow Lord series. That is the type of way you should end any streaming service TV series. Every single time is on some sort of cliffhanger. And that was a type of cliffhanger that was imposing. It was about, what's going to happen now? Rather than, oh my God, is he dead or alive? It was more, what's going to happen now, you know? I think Maul cannot defeat the Empire. That is something that I know, and Star Wars fans who watch every single piece of canon or even EU stuff, we know he won't be able to defeat the Empire. He may have a win. I think the Empire is just going to overrule this whole planet. I don't think he will be forced into being with Captain Lawson. I think Lawson could be on the chopping block at the moment. Not saying much about the things. He'll probably be discovered that he's been holding back a lot of information, which the Emperor Palpatine will not be happy with, and the Inquisitors won't be happy with. His life could be on the chopping block. But I think Maul will be forced further into exile. I think he'll escape. We know that he's still alive at the end of this series, even by the next series, because he does come back in another animated series and we see the fate of Maul. So I think he's just going to exile at the end of the show, or whatever happens to him. Probably at the end of this series, he's going to probably have a standoff with Darth Vader. It's my thoughts now, I think, and that's what's going to end. Is he alive or dead, or what's happened? Is Darth Vader dead or alive, or what's happened? You know, we know as Star Wars fans what really happens to both. But I think Captain Lawson, his life is pretty much on the line now. Maul will outwit the Empire in this time period, and but Maul will not be able to defeat the Empire. It's just too big and too intense of evil. The next question from Michael from Weber South. Is Maul's approach to recruitment effective? Critics have noted that unlike Sidious, Maul uses truths and Jedi morality as weapons to manipulate Devon, Ezra. Some wonder if he is softer, didactic method, monologuing in dimly lit rooms is a brilliant psychological strategy or simply a narrative story. I'll tell you what it is. It's exactly like Emperor Palpatine. He's using psychological manipulation. That's what Maul's using. That's what he knows. And I think that's sort of a part of the evil way, especially in Star Wars, which actually makes Star Wars really interesting. To me, the whole psychological aspect of Star Wars is just amazing, especially from the bad doers. But I think Maul is actually doing the same type of thing as Emperor Palpatine with his own variation. That's what I think, to answer that question. The next and final question. Is the show mythically thin compared to Lucas-era Star Wars? Some reviewers argue the Force feels more like a mechanical power system in these episodes rather than a spiritual metaphor. This has sparked debate over whether this series is high-quality crime drama or missing the spiritual heart of the franchise. You know, to answer that question, Star Wars is always going to be mythical at any stage. Obviously, the Star Wars we got in 1977 versus the Star Wars we're getting in 2026, which is remarkable in itself. It's that long. It shows you the strength of the actual Star Wars story. I think it's just two different types of mythical explanations. I just, we may see a more spiritual sort of feel back then and more mechanical now, but it's still mythical. It's the same type of story with just interesting psychological journeys with psychological outcomes. That to me is this Star Wars. Any Star Wars is a great psychological story piece to use in any understanding of psychological understanding. It's just great. It's still mythical. It's the same type of story told with a variant. That is Star Wars. Anyway, so that is the show for this time around. Now, the next particular episode, I will be coming off with a special edition with a movie. It's called The Beast. It's an advanced screening. I'm a part of an association here called the AACTA. If you want to check that particular episode out, it's not really about Star Wars. I like to review films from a Star Wars perspective. Me being a Star Wars fan, just seeing a different type of film. That's what I do it for. And I'm a part of that association. Why not? Anyway, until the next time, my friends, keep rocking.